So, I've been given a lot of great advice growing up from people who are smarter than me, from people that have been there, done that, built incredible businesses, made incredible change in the world. All of them, when asked for advice, had something to say. People who loved me and genuinely wanted to help. But when I look back, I realize that almost all of the advice that I got throughout my career over the past 15 years, I ended up ignoring. And I'll tell you why. Part of this talk is about why I'm glad I ignored that advice, but the more important part of my talk is about the tools that I used to actually make these tough decisions in life. And sitting where you guys are sitting today, I promise you, those decisions are coming. And before you write me off, this isn't one of those just trust your gut and trust the stars and ignore the haters. This isn't one of those talks. The decisions that I made over the course of my career changed who I am. They changed what I built and who I impacted. From moving to New York, to moving to Abu Dhabi, to bailing delivery drivers of talabat during the pandemic in the middle of the night, to building an AI company half an hour from where I grew up. All of these decisions came as a result of one matrix that I've been using my entire life. So when I face a big decision or when I face a fork in my road, I don't build pros and cons list. Honestly, those just confuse me even more. But what I do is I build a matrix. I nerd it out. And so how does that work? One, I sit in front of my laptop and I list everything that matters to me about this decision. The impact that I'll have, the people that I'll be working with, the growth that I will have personally, or the growth that I'll be able to achieve, the financial situation, the experience that I would get, and, for example, the city that I would live in. I would assign each of these dimensions a weight. And that's just me sitting alone with my laptop, thinking about what's important to me. So out of 100, how important is the impact that I'm gonna have? How important is who am I gonna be working with? How important is the financial situation? How much money am I gonna be making? How important is the experience and how important is the city that I'm gonna live in? And then I score these options 1 to 10 per dimension. So impact, option A, 7 out of 10. Impact, option B, 5 out of 10. And so on. And I know this sounds really theoretical, and I know this sounds like fluff, but I'm gonna walk you through exact forks in the road and decisions that I made using this matrix. So I'm gonna take you back, without the risk of aging myself, around 15 years, no, more, around 20 years, when I was deciding where I wanted to go to school. I was sitting in Amman with 2 acceptances in my hand. I could either study law at LSE in London, or I could go to Yale. One was a conditional acceptance, one was unconditional. One would mean that I would have a law career starting 3 years from then, and one would mean I would have to study for 7 years if I still wanted to do law. And guys, genuinely, I talked to everyone with a heartbeat, anyone who would listen. My parents, my teachers, my teta, anyone who would give me time, I ended up asking. And their resounding advice was, look, you wanna do law, it's a 3-year program, it's closer to home, your career starts earlier, just go to England. The logic was clean. It was cost efficient, it was time efficient, it was sound logic. What did I do? I went to my matrix. And guys, I'm taking screenshots from the actual matrix that I used 20 years ago. Then it was Excel. I then upgraded to Google Sheets as time moved on. So how did it look against my matrix? Study law at LSE or go to Yale? Career certainty, how long it would take, cost efficiency, flexibility, my room to explore other options, and I weighted each one of these out of 10. And ultimately, the decision was clear. And while the advice was sound, the problem was in the assumptions it was making. Finishing quickly Turns out, not so important to me. Important to other people, my parents, I can guarantee you, but to me, not so important. Flexibility, super important. I hadn't realized those factors before I sat down and put the numbers on the sheet. And so what ended up happening? I went to Yale and never looked back. 4 years into Yale, I got into a situation which I'm sure a lot of you are going to face in a year or two, is what do I do after college? Again, there I was, sitting in a coffee shop in New Haven with two options. I could either go work at the embassy in Paris, or I could go to a career in investment banking in New York. And I still remember sitting across from one of my professors who, he was brilliant, he was so invested in me, spent so much time mentoring me, and his advice was crystal clear. Go to France, spend a year, come back to Yale, I'll mentor your PhD, please, please, please. And I remember so well, he said, please don't sell your soul to finance. I'll be so disappointed if you do. And my mentor at 21 telling me that sentence, it hit hard. But ultimately, I went back to my Excel sheet. I pulled it up and I said, okay, Hala, what's important here? Not what's important to Professor Tom, not what's important to your parents, what's important to you? Challenge, the city that I was living in, fun, exposure and career, and financial considerations. And when I weighed one option against the next, again, the answer was resounding. Move to New York, start your career in finance, and that's what I did, and I never looked back. I'm going to fast forward a couple of years to probably the hardest and biggest decision that I had to make at the time. I had been working with Uber for around 3 years. I was consistently ranked as one of the top performers at the company. I was growing. I was offered the job of general manager for Jordan. I was doing really well. I had no reason to leave. But at the same time, I got a job offer to join Talabat. And at the time, Talabat was a tough cookie to crack. The company hadn't been growing. It was a really challenging market. And this was a turnaround story. And it was a big risk. And I remember sitting across from my mentor at the time who said, look, you're currently an operations manager. The jump from operations manager to managing director is a massive jump. You're setting yourself up to fail. You're skipping too many steps. The career ladder exists for a reason. Don't set yourself up to fail. Fair, logical. But I wasn't really convinced. I was stuck. This looks like a more complex version of my matrix because it was genuinely one of the hardest things I ever had to do. And again, guys, this is the exact same sheet that I used to make a decision. What was important to me? Managing people, job security, pay, flexibility, having a team, autonomy, waja' ras, all of these things factored into my equation. And by a very slim margin, I ended up at Talabat. And so what I'm trying to tell you guys is when someone gives you advice, they're running it through their own matrix, through their weights, what's important to them. Maybe they weigh financial security at 80%. Maybe they weigh flexibility at 5%. When they give you that advice, they're not wrong. It's just not yours. And I remember one time I built this incredible matrix that I was so confident with. I knew it was going to give, I was so thoughtful, so deliberate, I knew it was going to give me the answer that I was looking for. Ran the numbers, hit enter, saw the result, and I was like, oh man, this isn't what I want. And so I went back to the matrix and I thought, where am I not being honest? What weights am I solving for someone else's view of my life? What am I not being honest about? Adjusted those weights, hit enter, and I knew that that was the answer that I was looking for. So the matrix is not only important in helping you decide what's important to you, but also what you don't know about yourself and the way you're making decisions. So I want to talk to you about a second tool that I've built for myself over the past couple of years, because life isn't always forks in the road and major decisions, right? We all have day-to-days. Sometimes our days feel amazing, our weeks feel amazing, they feel energizing, but sometimes they just don't. Some weeks you feel like you're coming up empty. Some months you feel like you're coming up empty. And I've been there. You are going to be there. So I built another tool that I use when I'm feeling like things aren't really going my way, but I'm not really sure what's missing or what needs to change. Not for major decisions, just at any given point in life. And it looks something like this. What I do is, again, I sit down, I draw the ideal version of my week, of my day. If I were to design the perfect day, the perfect week, what would that look like? I would spend an hour at the gym, an hour or two in deep thought, uninterrupted. I would be at work from this hour to this hour. I'd have this time for my family, this time for my friends. What does the perfect day look like? And then, this is really important, I audit my actual day. So I look back and I look at the past couple of days. How did I spend the last couple of days actually? Where was I between 6 to 9? Where was I between 9 to 12? And the gap between your ideal day and your current day is your map. That's where you need to be spending all of your time. What am I missing? What am I not spending time on? And how can I change that as soon as possible? And I think I run this every couple of weeks. If I were you, I would at least run it every couple of weeks, if not every couple of months. Not for guilt, not for, oh, am I on the right track? Not for pressure, just for navigation. Because life is going to throw all kinds of things at you, all kinds of distractions that will cause you to deviate away from what your ideal looks like. Keep yourself honest, keep your schedules honest, because life is made up of these small days and the weeks and the months that eventually add up. So I want to talk to you guys directly for a moment. You guys are at one of the best universities in the country, if not the region. You are going to get advice from all kinds of places, from people you love, from people who want what's best for you. And while the advice is always going to come from a good place, just make sure that before you take that next piece of advice, know what's important to you. Build your own matrix. Make decisions on your own terms, on your own weight. Not what sounds impressive, not what anyone else wants, what you actually want. And if you feel like your days are on autopilot, or you feel like you don't have that energy to go out and break things and create things and make change, audit your days, audit your weeks, audit your months, see how you're spending your time, because life is in these small moments and eventually they add up. Ultimately in this life, you can do what looks right, you can do what sounds good, what sounds impressive, or you can decide what matters to you, what to do on your own terms. So you end up living the best version of your own life rather than the best version of someone else's view of your life. So the advice is going to keep coming. The question remains whose matrix you're running it through. My advice to you is make sure it's yours. Thank you.